federal funding for abortion. Will a bipartisan Senate deal help or hurt the pro-life movement? Sessions showdown.
And that calls for a communication that I've had with the president, and I believe it remains confidential.
The Attorney General testifies on Capitol Hill what he says and won't say about the Russia email investigation. Free at last. An Italian priest kidnapped in Nigeria is released. We have new details in a report from Rome. National Guide Dog Day. Pope Francis blesses man's best friend. On EWTN News Nightly for Wednesday, October 18th, 2017. Good evening from Washington, D.C., and thank you to those of you joining us from around the world for news from a Catholic perspective. I'm Lauren Ashburn. Two of the country's biggest pro-life groups condemn a federal health care compromise. They say the deal to help low-income people would also fund abortion. Capitol Hill correspondent Jason Calvi questioned the chairman of the Senate's Health Committee. Good evening, Jason.
Good evening, Lauren. Republican Senator Lamar Alexander tells me this is just a first step, and he hasn't yet talked about the bill's abortion impact. But the March for Life tells us this deal would perpetrate abortion and put a Republican stamp of approval on it. Pro-life group Susan B. Anthony List joins the opposition, telling us this deal is a non-starter and inadequate.
Well, pro-life voters should be very concerned.
Health policy expert Chris Jacobs worries about the health care compromise. This former staffer for then Congressman Mike Pence says the bill doesn't include Hyde Amendment protections, which ban taxpayer funds from going to abortion plans. So I questioned the bill's sponsors, including Democrat Patty Murray.
Are you going to have any Hyde language on this bill?
And Republican Health Committee Chairman Lamar Alexander.
Without the Hyde language, that money would go, the billions could go to subsidize abortion plans, and right now...
I'm not sure that's true. We haven't discussed that, and if that's a problem, I'm sure the president will address it.
But Chris Jacobs says an executive order fixing the problem isn't good enough.
I've read the bill. The Hyde Amendment pro-life protections are not in there. We saw with Obamacare that executive orders and executive action is insufficient. The statute always trumps an executive order.
The healthcare proposal is centered on another issue, helping keep costs down for more than 6 million people with low incomes. A federal judge ruled 3 years ago that Congress never authorized federal subsidies sent to insurance companies. President Trump last week ordered the payments stopped. But Alexander and Murray's deal would restore that money.
The win here really is for American people.
Chairman Alexander says the president called him 3 times to talk about the deal and was encouraging. But in public, the president sends mixed messages.
If something can happen, that's fine, but I won't do anything to enrich the insurance companies, because right now the insurance companies are being enriched. They've been enriched by Obamacare like nothing anybody's ever seen before.
Senator Alexander tells us the bill includes more conservative health care victories than they've had in 8 years. He points to it allowing more flexibility for the states with their plans. Now, Freedom Caucus chairman, that's a conservative group in the House, Mark Meadows, calls it a good start, but other conservatives say it's an unacceptable bailout of insurance companies. Lauren?
And where do the insurance companies fit in on all of this?
Insurance companies have warned that dropping the low-income subsidies could lead them to jack up premiums or simply abandon the Obamacare markets. The chairman predicts the bill in some form will become law this year.
Correspondent Jason Calvi on Capitol Hill. President Donald Trump took his tax reform sales pitch to conservatives last night. The president also waded into the culture wars, saying he wants to put religion back into the Christmas season. White House correspondent Mark Irons reports. Good evening, Mark.
Good evening, Lauren. The president says he wants to deliver historic tax cuts for American families, businesses, and workers. He's also made it clear he's not afraid to use explicit Christian language. No more happy holidays for him.
I want Merry Christmas. We're going to say it again.
President Trump using an appearance to push his tax agenda to argue the U.S. should celebrate and preserve its history.
I'm talking about Christmas present. I'll give you a bigger Christmas present. You're going to be saying Merry Christmas again. Okay?
The president is pitching tax overhaul as a boon for the middle class.
So let's give our country the best Christmas present of all. Massive tax relief.
Trump says his tax plan will cut the corporate tax rate from 35% to 20%, nearly double the standard deduction, and increase the child tax credit. Adam Michel, a conservative tax expert with Heritage, says the president's plan is good for middle-class families.
They should be excited about tax reform because a simpler tax system for how they're paying money to Washington is better for them.
And Trump says his proposal would lead to a $4,000 pay raise for the average American family. Michel says it's a move in the right direction.
Experts can debate about the specific number. The direction is what matters. Everyone agrees that this is a wage increase for Americans is coming through tax reform.
But Trump's plan has been met with skepticism from tax experts and Democratic lawmakers who say the changes could increase taxes for many families.
This is a budget that would provide 80% of its tax breaks to the top 1%, 40% of its tax breaks to the top 0.1%.
And transitioning to health care overhaul, despite a failure by the GOP to pass a bill, pro-life protections are still on President Trump's radar. Today, White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders said the president would like to see a health care bill that would not include funding for abortion. Sanders says she believes that's a priority for President Trump. Lauren.
Correspondent Mark Irons at the White House. We are joined by Genevieve Wood, senior advisor at the Heritage Foundation, that conservative think tank that does support tax reform. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Tell me how important it is for the president to have a win on tax reform or on tax relief.
It's huge, as the president might say. It's huge for the country, but it's huge for the president because if this gets done, then you can go back to things like Obamacare repeal and a number of other things. If this doesn't get done, it's going to be hard to see the economy growing at a level to do many of the things that they've talked about, infrastructure rebuilding, all the other things the president's talked about. A lot of it's going to be hung up if they don't get tax relief through.
Does Heritage support this plan?
We love the plan that's currently out there. I mean, House is passing their version, Senate will pass their version, you'll come to the table. But there are certain measures like that corporate tax relief we talked about that has huge implications for the middle class and for workers. Yes, it's a tax relief for business, but business then takes that and puts it back into wages, cuts the prices of their products, and additionally, businesses that have moved offshore are going to move back to the United States.
But Bernie Sanders, you heard him say 1/10 of 1%
Bernie
that goes to that.
Never a tax Bernie hasn't liked. Look, yeah, but here's the deal, Bernie. 70% of taxes in this country are paid by the top 1% of income earners. So it's not surprising they might see some tax relief as well. But the question I think most people out there want to know is, how is it going to affect me? Not just my neighbor next door, what does it mean for me? And the average American family, middle income, could see, as Adam Michel pointed out, anywhere from a $4,000 to $9,000 wage increase.
As we heard earlier, the bill doesn't address abortion funding. And in your view, should the president back it, even if, as we heard, it may fund abortions?
Talking about the health care piece of legislation.
Now we're moving to health care.
Yeah, no, I don't think that. Look, this bill's bad for two reasons. Number one, it doesn't alleviate, it just kicks the can down the road. This isn't about low-income folks. This is about insurance companies that want taxpayers to pay half the bill. They've jacked up rates on other people needing health care, and we've seen premiums go through the roof. This is because Obamacare doesn't work. The Murray legislation would put a Band-Aid on it, and it would do nothing to address the pro-life concerns so many people have had.
Let's move to quickly the division in the Republican Party. Earlier this week, we saw Donald Trump meet with Senator Mitch McConnell. They seem to be moving toward a more friendly relationship. But Steve Bannon, former White House advisor, is out on the road there, really trying to rally donors against the Trump administration. So, and primarily Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. So do conservatives agree with Steve Bannon or Donald Trump? Where are they in the spectrum right now?
Well, I think conservatives want to see Congress and people like Mitch McConnell's Majority Leader, who've been here for a long time, get something done, and not just get something done that limits the size and scope of government. Frankly, Republican leadership has not been successful in that. That's one of the main reasons Donald Trump is president today. But I think, look, the difference is you saw Rand Paul coming around on tax reform this week. You see Lindsey Graham, people who've been tough in the past. I think Donald Trump's a deal maker right now in the White House.
Thank you so much. Genevieve Wood, Senior Advisor at the Heritage Foundation.
Thank you.
The latest version of President Trump's travel ban is facing a challenge in Maryland. A federal judge says the third version of the ban is still tainted by religious discrimination. Federal judges in Hawaii blocked it yesterday. The ban covers 8 countries, including North Korea, Syria, and Yemen. Attorney General Jeff Sessions is defending President Trump's decision to fire FBI Director James Comey. Sessions telling senators on Capitol Hill the president made the right move, but refusing to discuss any private conversations leading up to it. Correspondent Wyatt Goolsby joins us with more. Good evening, Wyatt.
Good evening, Lauren. Jeff Sessions today insisting Comey's firing was motivated by the White House's displeasure over Comey's handling of an investigation into Hillary Clinton's email servers. It's just one topic the Attorney General covered while testifying before the Senate Judiciary Committee today. The hearing is Sessions' first appearance before the committee since he was confirmed in January. He's reshaping the Justice Department with an intense focus on immigration, drugs, gangs, and violent crime. But one of the most contentious moments today came when Senator Al Franken of Minnesota accused Sessions of moving the goalposts and denying his interactions with the Russian ambassador over the Trump election campaign.
Well, let me just say this without hesitation, that I conducted no improper discussions with Russians at any time regarding a campaign or any other item facing this country.
Okay, how do you
know? I want to say that first. And that's been the suggestion that you've raised and others, that it was somehow we had conversations that were improper.
May I suggest that...
No, you had a long time, Senator Franken. I'd like to respond.
Sessions was asked multiple times if he colluded with the Russians during the White House race. He denied any involvement. Now, Attorney General Sessions did say he spoke to a Russian ambassador at the Republican National Convention in the summer of 2016, but he argued he's met numerous foreign ambassadors in recent years. And Lauren, as you can imagine, Democrats were not satisfied with that answer or Sessions refusing to detail his private conversations about James Comey with President Trump. Lauren.
Wyatt, Sessions was the public face of the administration's decision to end their support of the DACA program, benefiting thousands of young people who entered the U.S. illegally as children. Has the Attorney General changed his position at all? And how did he respond to criticism today?
Well, Sessions did not waver. He's not changed his position. He says the DACA policy, which was produced by the Obama administration, is not sustainable. He also says it's not legal. He adds the president has a heart for young people, but Sessions equated the law to amnesty. Instead, Sessions says the White House wants to work with Congress to create a law for dreamers. He says that would be the better path, although Democrats disagree. Lauren.
Wyatt Goolsby, correspondent, thank you so much. Senior officials from the U.S., South Korea, and Japan reaffirmed their commitment to finding a diplomatic solution to the North Korean nuclear threat. U.S. Deputy Secretary of State John Sullivan met with his South Korean and Japanese counterparts in Seoul today. Sullivan says the Trump administration will continue to keep all options on the table when it comes to dealing with the communist nation. ISIS continues to lose strength in the Philippines, as 4 more soldiers have died in the city of Marawi. 10 government soldiers were injured in this latest battle. The clash comes after President Rodrigo Duterte declared the southern city liberated from terrorist influence. Marawi is the center of Islamic faith in the predominantly Roman Catholic country. Pope Francis decries Saturday's terror attack in Somalia, which killed more than 300 people.
Per la strage avvenuta qualche giorno fa a Mogadiscio, Somalia, che ha causato oltre 300.
During his weekly talk at the Vatican, the Holy Father said this terrorist act merits the strongest laments. He prayed for the dead and wounded and appealed for the conversion of the attackers. 4 British missionaries providing medical aid in the country have been kidnapped in Nigeria. It comes as an Italian priest abducted in the same country is freed. Father Maurizio Palu is a missionary with the Neo-Catechumenal Way. He was kidnapped at gunpoint from the southern city of Benin. Juliet Lindley is EWTN News Nightly's Vatican correspondent. She joins us from Rome. Juliet, what do we know about the circumstances surrounding the priest's release?
The Italian Foreign Minister, Angelino Alfano, confirmed the priest's release this morning. He's in good health. And Lauren, it's actually Father Palu's birthday today. He turned 63, so that's an extra reason for celebration. Now, Father Palu had been working as a missionary in Nigeria for 3 years, based in the capital, Abuja. The priest was kidnapped by armed men in southern Nigeria last Thursday. He was reportedly with other people traveling to Benin City when an armed group stopped them, stole their belongings, and abducted the Italian priest, along with a fellow Nigerian priest and a female student. They were taken on foot into a forest where they were kept for nearly a week.
Oh, that's
Lauren?
horrible. Do we have any idea who was behind the abduction? Was there ransom money exchanged?
It remains unclear who exactly the kidnappers were and what their motive was. Now, kidnappings for ransom are common in Nigeria, and victims usually are freed unharmed. However, Father Palu told our Spanish colleagues here at EWTN just now that no ransom money was paid. Interestingly, Father Palu had been kidnapped once before, last year on the same date in mid-October, and that time he was released shortly after. But he told Vatican Radio that both abductions took place on the feast of the Madonna of Fatima, and he said that was very symbolic. And he says he wants to continue working in Nigeria, saying, quote, "You can only defeat the demons by staying here."
I don't understand. On the same day, so it is definitely, it would seem to me, religiously motivated. Fascinating. And last month, Father Tom, an Indian priest, was released from captivity in southern Yemen, and we covered that story closely. How dangerous is this job of a missionary? It seems to be that it is very dangerous.
Lauren, yeah, it would indeed appear to be dangerous. A very dangerous job. According to Vatican news agency Fides, last year 28 Catholic pastoral workers were killed worldwide. Now, the largest number were murdered in South America, and 12 of them were murdered there. And then in Africa, 8 lost their lives, in Asia 7, and in Europe 1. Now, looking back since 1980, there have been more than 1,100 people representing the church that have been killed on the job.
That's just remarkable. Thank you so much, Juliet Lindley, EWTN News Nightly Vatican correspondent.
Thank you, Lauren.
The retired Archbishop of Cebu in the Philippines has died. Cardinal Ricardo Vidal passed away this morning of septic shock. He is the former president of the Catholic bishops in the Philippines. He was called a champion of peace, and he was also a dear friend to EWTN. Vidal was 86. Coming up, taking a knee. As NFL owners meet, President Trump tweets. Plus, my conversation about an entrepreneur from Argentina who could one day become a saint.
Every neighbor's sad for each other. The whole community's gone.
The 11,000 firefighters battling the massive wildfires in California are finally gaining the upper hand. At least 40 people have died, dozens more are missing. The 2 largest fires are about 60% contained. Rain later this week could help quell the flames. The NFL is not changing its national anthem policy for players. The policy states players should stand, but it doesn't say they must stand. Today, NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell said he met with several team owners, but a policy change was not discussed. Goodell did add he believes everyone should stand for the anthem. This morning, before Goodell's comments, the president tweeted the NFL has decided it will not force players to stand for the playing of our national anthem. Total disrespect for our great country. An Argentine entrepreneur may soon become a saint. Enrique Shaw founded the Christian Association of Business Executives and led his employees by applying Catholic social teaching in the workplace. I recently sat down with a businessman based in Buenos Aires who knew him and says that Shaw is a heroic example to follow. Jose Maria Simon, welcome to EWTN News Nightly.
Nice meeting you. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. You're the founder and managing director of Solinfi, a company that manages assets and investments. Tell me how you knew Enrique Shaw.
First, I started looking and reading about Enrique in 1997, 1996, because our association, local association in Argentina, the chapter of Union Bank in Argentina. He was the founder and the president in 1951.
So it seems odd to me that you hear of a lay person, this is the father of 9, died of cancer at an early age, becoming a saint. It's usually martyrs and religious. Why do you think this is?
Well, he has a very special attitude. I mean, he was really very focused on his family. He was a very committed Catholic person, but one of his talents was to put all his effort in the business.
And into helping people. He established a pension fund,
Yeah.
is that right? To provide industry workers with medical service, financial support, loans. What can we learn from Enrique?
The attitude, the way he was doing that, because it was a total coherence about his beliefs and the way he managed the people and those who were surrounding him. This is the big difference. He put in practice what he was preaching. So this is the attitude that a manager that is totally committed and convinced that this is the way to have the relationship with persons has to follow.
Shaw, in his last days, received a blood transfusion, and his employees lined up
3,000.
3,000 of them to give him blood. And his last words, that he was happy at this moment that the blood of his workers was coursing through his veins. That, to me, shows what a beloved man he was.
Actually, he wanted to be a blue-collar worker. That was his objective. A bishop in Boston convinced him that instead of being a blue-collar worker, he could have been someone who influenced the businessman. So that's why he was very fond of receiving the blood of the people.
Does he need a miracle to become a saint?
Yes.
And what would that be?
Exactly, there are 2 or 3 cases, and they are recuperating from cancer illness. One is a man, then there is a boy. And this is very important because if you can be God's servant and you go through the saint process, if you do have 2 miracles that already have been confirmed. So we are analyzing and we are receiving all the information and the medical information in order to present to the Curia all the process.
Very good. Thank you so much for telling us about Enrique Shaw. Jose Maria Simon.
Thank you very much.
Up next, are rumors of Pope Benedict's declining health true? And the Vatican goes to the dogs. Pope Francis honors the visually impaired and their guide dogs. Today is the feast of St. Luke, who wrote one of the 4 Gospels and the Acts of the Apostles. You can watch a reflection on St. Luke by EWTN News Nightly chaplain, Father Patrick Mary. Go right now to facebook.com/EWTN News Nightly. The Catholic organization Caritas in Bangladesh is aiding the majority Muslim ethnic group of Rohingya refugees. Asia News reports the group received permission from authorities in Bangladesh to help. The group is starting to distribute food to 70,000 people, and they're planning to continue for 2 months. Over the past few weeks, hundreds of thousands of people have poured into Bangladesh from Myanmar. The Holy Father will visit both countries next month. Pope Benedict's secretary is denying reports that the retired pontiff is nearing death. Archbishop Georg Ganswein says the Pope Emeritus is just fine and calls online rumors pure invention. He told a German media outlet the reports are false and wrong. He says the former Holy Father just visited with his brother last week at the Vatican. Ganswein says both had a good time. The director of the Vatican press office, Greg Burke, posted this image on Twitter saying the Pope Emeritus today at 5 p.m. Benedict, who is 90, lives inside the Vatican. Finally, tonight, the Pope is marking National Guide Dog Day in Italy. Dozens of dogs made their way into St. Peter's Square with their visually impaired owners to visit the Holy Father.
Un rapporto di affetto perché è un vero compagno di vita,
This woman said the Holy Father had very touching words for her when she told him about her son who battles a drug addiction. She's part of a group hoping that Pope Francis will help raise awareness for the need to ease everyday life for the visually impaired. For all of us here at EWTN News Nightly, to all of you around the world, thank you for watching. I'm Lauren Ashburn. We'll be back tomorrow with more news from a Catholic perspective. We leave you tonight with more images from today's general audience with Pope Francis at the Vatican. Good night, and God bless you.